Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very, very much, as always, for listening, for watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. I do appreciate you very, very much. Big shout out to today's sponsor as well, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, Lackawanna, literally just minutes away, about 5 minutes or so away from Highmark Stadium. Great wings, great food, great vibes, great drinks. Love that place. One of my favorite spots in all of Western New York. I used to call it one of the biggest sleeper spots, but it's not really a sleeper anymore because a lot of people know about that place. If you don't, make sure you go and check them out. Sunny Reds. All right. Today on this show, we're actually going to have a pod bag. And I'll tell you this too right now. This is going to be one of the better pod bags I've ever done on this show. There are some really, really good questions, comments, and takes from some of you. And for people who don't know what the pod bags are when I do these episodes, I let you control the narrative. I pulled the best of your questions, your comments, your takes from our YouTube page, some tweets sent to me, a couple emails, primarily Bills, but not just Buffalo Bills stuff, but primarily Bills stuff here on the show today. And I'm going to respond to them. I love doing these shows because they just feel very interactive. I love having other people involved. You listen to this show, I feel like you deserve to be part of the show, have your voices heard. So that's what I do on these pod bag episodes. If you watch regularly or listen to the show regularly, I was going to do the first of what's going to ultimately be 5 7-round Buffalo Bills mock drafts. Decided against that. I was going to do one solo today, but I decided against that, and I want to wait another week. And the reason is pretty simple. I want to be as informative as I possibly can. I've said this a million times. Mock drafts, they're fun to post on Twitter. You take a quick look at them, and that's it. When I do a mock draft, the object is to kind of learn about maybe not so much who the Bills pick and if it ends up being accurate or not. But to me, good mock drafts, at least in terms of podcasting, TV, broadcasting, stuff like that, it's about learning about the process. You start to get a really good idea of what group of players are going to be around at a certain spot, what positions are going to be, are more in abundance than others. Some positions are thinner than others. You may have to move up. You may not be able to wait to pull the trigger, things like that. I feel like you learn a lot about the draft that way. So I love doing mock drafts and I love being as formative as possible. But again, I'm not there yet right now with the prospects. And I don't want to pull your leg. My insight feels limited right now to day one guys and a lot of day two guys as well. But I want to learn more about a lot of the day three guys. And you know how Brandon Beane rolls. In fact, we're going to talk about him today too. Fun topic. I enjoyed doing some research on, but Brandon Beane has really kind of kicked ass on day three of the draft since 2018. And I want to learn about more of these day three guys, how they fit before I spend time talking about them and projecting them to become Buffalo Bills when I barely even know who the hell they are. So I've been working hard at it. I'm going to continue doing that. And for the next 3 weeks for sure, because it's not going to be me solo, we're definitely going to have 7-round Buffalo Bills mock drafts on over the next 3 Thursdays. And I got 3 really good guests, 3 very knowledgeable people to do these with me. Next week, I'm going to have David Tilton from Cover One. He's going to do the first mock. Then the following week, one of my favorites, I think he's the most underrated podcaster in all of the Buffalo Bills podcasting community. I'm talking about Anthony Prohaska, also from Cover One. Love that dude. He did a show with me last year. It was awesome, a mock draft. So he's going to be back. And then my guy, Bruce Nolan. So Bruce Nolan is going to be with me as well. So the next 3 weeks, we're going to, again, not just do a Buffalo Bills 7-round mock, but we're going to paint, and I'll stop the draft and ask a lot of questions to these guys about certain prospects, players, positions, projections, all that stuff. And hopefully we'll start to learn a lot more about positional groups and where they might be the best fit for the Bills, as opposed to just a specific player as well. So that'll be coming up. But as for today, like I said, let's just dive right into the pod bag. I really, truly like this one a lot. Let's get started with Griffin Scores 8, who says, really hope Brandon Beane plans on trading up, or even better, trading a pick or picks for a few veterans, because he's been very overrated with drafting. He lucked into Josh Allen thanks to Cleveland, the New York Jets, and Denver. And while he's hit on some picks, he's also had as many bad misses, including Kaiir Elam, Boogie Basham, AJ Epinesa, and Cody Ford, not to mention last year's rookie class that does not look great. Sorry, but I'm not excited about the Bills having 10 picks next month. All right. Well, thank you for that, Griffin. First and foremost, nitpicking here, but I wouldn't put AJ Epinesa on that list of busts that you have alongside Elam, Boogie, and Cody Ford, who really didn't do too much with the Bills. I think AJ Epinesa's been fine. Second round pick, guy who gets you 6-7 sacks per year, pretty solid rotational piece. I mean, he's never developed into a star, but I think for where he was drafted, I think AJ Epinesa has been fine. I think Cody Ford had at least for a while, a good start to his career, promising start. Plus, let's not forget, he was a major trade piece and what ultimately got the Bills Josh Allen. Sure, Elam, yeah, of course. Boogie Basham, sure. I get what you're saying. The early picks, Brandon Beane has not always shined on them. A lot of people feel that way, and when it comes to that, you're not wrong. You're also not wrong about lucking into Josh Allen, but the Kansas City Chiefs lucked into the Bills being willing to trade down in 2017 and get Patrick Mahomes, right? Would the Kansas City Chiefs be 3-time Super Bowl champions if they didn't move up, and if the Bills said, "No, we're not going to trade with you," and someone else got Patrick Mahomes? So there's luck involved in any team that becomes a great team, wins titles, competes for titles. Yeah, but look, Brandon Beane, like I said, he's had misses for sure. And who knows about last year's class? You mentioned that at this point. I think it's a little bit too early for that. I'm not very high on what I saw from them as rookies, but I've also been a knee-jerk reactor in the past, and I thought Terrel Bernard sucked early on in his career, and he certainly didn't. I thought James Cook was going to be very overrated early on. He certainly hasn't been. All GMs have misses. And trust me when I tell you, dude, I ain't trying to be no Brandon Beane apologist. If you know me, you know that. Some of his mistakes, sure. But, it's also, Griffin, it's easy to, sometimes even lazy, if I'm being honest with you, to just kind of keep throwing the Elam and the Boogies and Ford and guys like that out there is like this big indictment against Brandon Beane and his staff, their ability to draft. All teams have misses, some more than others, of course, but no general manager has a perfect track record when it comes to the draft or trade or free agency or any of that. And again, the low-hanging fruit about all these misses, here's what I want to do. And I actually spent a little bit of time researching this, went back and looked at a bunch of the drafts here under Brandon Beane. I did the research. Let's go through some really good Buffalo Bills picks under Brandon Beane. And perhaps even more importantly than the player that the Bills drafted, let's discuss who the very next player at that same position was picked at the same position that they play. So the Bills make a good pick. And who was next? Like, what could have been? You could say, well, if the Bills would have jumped Kansas City and took McDuffie instead of Elam, sure. Absolutely. Boogie Basham, I get it. A lot of bad picks. But he's also made a lot of good picks. And especially when you look at around the league compared to his peers, some of the players that were picked at the same positions right after. I'll give you a couple examples here. We'll talk about some of Brandon Beane, I feel like his best picks. We'll kind of go in chronological order from most recent to most far back. O'Cyrus Torrence, 59th overall pick. The very next offensive lineman picked after Torrence, Juice Scruggs of Houston. He went 4 picks later. Next offensive lineman after Osiris Torrance. James Cook, 63rd overall pick. Next running back, Rachaad White, who, by the way, Rachaad White, I mean, he's fine. I don't think he's as good as James Cook, but he's fine. 2 running backs later, after Cook, Tyrion Davis Price to the San Francisco 49ers. Terrel Bernard, the captain of the Buffalo Bills right now, anchor in the middle of the defense, just signed a lucrative 4-year extension. He was picked in the 3rd round at number 89. You know who the next linebacker off the board was after Terrel Bernard? Channing Tindall, Miami Dolphins. Imagine if Brandon Beane pulled the trigger on Channing Tindall instead of Terrel Bernard. Kind of see a pattern coming here, right, folks? Let's keep going. Same draft class, actually. Cook and Bernard are same draft class as Khalil Shakir as well. 5th round. Pick 148. So you get Shakir in the 5th, Brandon Beane does. The next wide receiver off the board after Khalil Shakir, Montrell Washington to the Denver Broncos. Perhaps the biggest steal of the Brandon Beane era. Same draft, too. By the way, what a freaking remarkable 2022 draft that was, especially when you consider Kaiir Elam busted. All these guys are from the same draft class. Christian Benford, man, 6th round, 185th overall pick by Brandon Beane. The next cornerback to go off the board, Gregory Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, that's incredible. Look at these names I'm mentioning. It's not even the good Bills players. It's these no-name guys that went after that amounted to pretty much nothing in the NFL. Got a few more for you. Spencer Brown, 3rd round, 93rd overall. The next offensive tackle to go, which in fairness to, this exercise is a pretty damn good one as well. But Robert Hainsley went to Tampa 2 picks after Spencer Brown, 1st offensive tackle taken. Dawson Knox, 96 overall pick. The Bills moved up to get him. The next tight end off the board after Dawson Knox, Trevin Wesco of the New York Jets. Last one here. Taron Johnson, 4th round, 2018, pick 121. The very next cornerback off the board after Taron Johnson, Avonte Maddox from the Philadelphia Eagles. So, again, you could shit on Brandon Beane for some bad draft picks. And he has made some bad draft picks. Not every move he's made has worked. And I am no Brandon Beane apologist whatsoever. But you're going to shit on him for his mistakes. I mean, own up to the fact that he's done a lot of good for this organization. And we're just talking about the draft here specifically. Brandon Beane has been way better at drafting than most people, even Bills Mafia, truly gives him credit for. Again, I'll run through that real quick here. Some of those names. Instead of Osiris Torrance, you get Juice Scruggs. Instead of Terrel Bernard, you get Channing Tindall. Instead of Khalil Shakir, you get Montrell Washington. Instead of Christian Benford, you get Gregory Jr. Instead of Spencer Brown, you get Robert Hainsey. Instead of Dawson Knox, you get Trevon Wesco. Instead of Taron Johnson, you get Avonte Maddox. Where would the Buffalo Bills be if instead of getting the guy they got, the next guy who went off the board after them, that would be the guy that Brandon Beane pulled the trigger on? He probably wouldn't have a job. Or Josh Allen would have had to be a 5-time MVP by now for Brandon Beane to still have a job. So, again, flawed for sure, but I think Brandon Beane has been way better as a whole at drafting than a lot of people ever give him credit for. One more here, then we'll take a quick break. At Sean L. underscore JW9RR. It's a long-ass screen name, dude. Look, James Cook, even at full asking price, is asking for less than a middling receiver like Darius Slayton, who's getting 15.3 annual average per spot rack. Folks are nuts for wanting to let him walk for less than that, especially when considering with the way the running back market will climb. And then he lists a couple guys here specifically, Basham Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, etc., making even the full salary a cap saving deal. And then folks implying that James Cook wasn't that much of a difference maker to our offense on top of that. It's all just a bit much for me, LOL. That's Sean saying that, not me. Anyway, he's the type of running back you want for this quarterback and offensive style. He's a great scat back, I'm sorry, and a pressure retrieving playmaker for Josh Allen. I think we'll eventually pay the guy, and both sides will be very happy. All right, regarding the last sentence, I hope you're right. You know where I stand. If you listen to this show, folks, you know where I stand. I think the Bills absolutely should be making any effort within reason possible to extend James Cook. I kind of feel like you said it all there. Besides that, with the exception of being a scat back, I really don't consider James Cook any kind of scat back. I think a scat backs, Scott, why is that word so damn hard for me to say? Scat backs. I think of guys like Eric Metcalf, not James Cook. It's a great point about the money, too. You know, he may be asking for what feels like too much money right now, but when you get guys like Basham Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs that are definitely going to get what James Cook is asking for now and more, maybe significantly more, it starts to feel less. And I still think $15 million for James Cook is too much, but I guarantee you if it's signed for that with the Bills or wherever next year, the year after, whenever it may be, a lot of that's just window dressing anyway. You look at the contract, 4 for 60. It's never really 4 for 60. You think $15 million average. Well, sure. If you look at it as window dressing, but when you get into the guarantees, the outs, and all kinds of other things, void years, doesn't always work out that way. When it comes to Cook, the one thing I'll add, and I've said this before, your goal this year is to win a Super Bowl. And I have a very hard time thinking any day 2 or even worse, day 3 pick or Ray Davis for that matter too is going to make the Bills offense better than what James Cook makes it right now. And that's not me shitting on Ray Davis. I like Ray Davis plenty. I think Ray Davis brings a nice element to the offense. I think Ray Davis may bring a bigger element to the offense going forward. But I maintain he's not better than James Cook. He's just not. He does not have that gear that James Cook has. Last thing about Cook, and I'm not even sure he's peaked yet, by the way. But there's still ways to make him a even better weapon right now in the Buffalo Bills offense. And that comes via the passing game that I don't think Joe Brady has tapped into enough yet. Hopefully he will come 2025. All right, I'm going to take a real quick break, come back on the other side, start to fly through some of these. Again, some really good ones too coming up right after this quick break. All right, we are going through this week's Podbag. This is a good one. Nostalgic 90s guy Chad says, does the actions of the Bills this offseason, letting Matt Collins and Cooper walk while only signing Josh Palmer, worry you that maybe they are trusting Keon Coleman too much to take a major step in his second year? Well, that's a very good question. They definitely are relying on Keon Coleman and also Dalton Kincaid to take a big step next year. No question about that, as they should. You drafted Keion Coleman with your first overall pick last year. You moved up to go get Dalton Kincaid with your first overall pick 2 years ago. You damn sure should be expecting them to take a big step. But the way this offense is constructed, the days of having a true alpha number one wide receiver, I feel like that ended the day Joe Brady stopped being the quarterback coach and became offensive coordinator. Like literally the number one receiver died. The concept of it died in this offense. And it's not necessarily, in fact, it's not really a criticism at all. I mean, the Bills have, and if you include Keon Coleman right now, 4 guys that they probably consider number 2s, maybe number 3s. I suppose it doesn't really matter if you call somebody a number 2 or number three. At the end of the day, there's stud number ones, the A.J. Browns, the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons, and then there's other receivers, okay? And that's what the Bills have. You can label it any damn way you want, man. The team on any given day, the way this offense is constructed, can be Buffalo's de facto number one that week. Let's remember, this is a team last year in a historic franchise record-setting offensive output in 2024. This is a team that had literally 9 different guys lead the team in receiving yards in a game. And I'm going to say that again because even saying it sounds hard to believe. 9 different guys led the Buffalo Bills in receiving over the course of a full game last year. And by the way, none of them are Dalton Kincaid, who, when he's healthy, could be as effective as any of these wide receivers. At least I think he can be. Now, some still think that the Bills are going to sign another, whether it's either a well-known veteran or they're going to draft one early. I don't dismiss that possibility. The right fit, sure. But right now, my mindset, not so much because I don't think the Bills need help at wide receiver, but because I look at this team, the needs, and I just keep pointing to the defense. Because of that, I really don't agree with that in terms of the Bills adding another big ticket guy. And that big ticket guy could be a free agent, even though it's not really an out there. It could be a trade. I think it's somebody like George Pickens, who I still believe will end up on the trade market at some point. Or it could be one of the top prospects via the draft. Their top 4 wide receivers the Bills have right now are all signed for multiple more years beyond just this year. Now, look, they could get rid of Samuel after 2025. They could save around like $6 million in cap room and need about $3.5 million to do so. They certainly could do that. But I don't think that's the goal. And if they add another significant wide receiver at this point, I feel like it's going to be, I shouldn't even say significant. When they add another wide receiver, which they're going to, I feel like it's going to be somebody who plays special teams as well. Because another thing about the Bills' top 4 receivers right now, Coleman, Samuel, Palmer, Shakir, none of those top 4 really have any special team value whatsoever. Are you going to have 5 wide receivers on your roster and none of them have special team value? That's why I think guys like Jalen Virgil or Tyrell Shavers, those types are more likely to be a 5th wide receiver on this team this year, or even a 5th and a 6th if they keep 6 than anything else. As far as Coleman, which is kind of circling back to what you asked about him taking a big leap and then the Bills trust him enough. Well, I don't know about that, but I'll say this much. If you want to be optimistic here about Keon Coleman, and I've kind of went back and forth. I didn't love the pick. I didn't love him as the Bills pick going into the draft. I didn't love him being the pick of the Bills draft. I thought he had an up and down season. He certainly flashed. It's the consistency that I'm worried about. And then you can add the fact that he really struggled coming back from that injury as well. But if you want to be completely optimistic, understandably so, when it comes to Keon Coleman, yeah, sure, they're counting on him to be a lot better in year 2. And if you want some confidence boosting, I'd say this. Keon Coleman led the team in reception or receiving yards, I should say, 3 times during the first 7 games of the season. And you want to even get more specific, I would say back to back, those weeks 7 and 8 specifically, that's where he really showed some great potential. Week 7 against the Tennessee Titans, he had 4 catches for $125. And then he came back on the road the next week and he had 5 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown in Seattle. Like that version of Keon Coleman, very promising. 3 catches for 22 yards in 3 playoff loss or games. That's not very promising. So which Keon Coleman will we see? I don't know, but I feel like the Bills, by not going out and signing a real significant, Josh Palmer's a nice ad, but he's not, like a game-changing type receiver. I'm careful with this take because he still got the draft to go, and maybe they take a wide receiver in the first round. But as things stand right now, I feel like their motto is, I trust Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid to be healthier and take another big step. At Mortgage Chris for you says, not counting the draft, because who knows how that plays out. What's one move you most want to see the Buffalo Bills make before they open up the season in week 1? All right. Well, this one's easy for me personally right now. Actually, there's 2 things. I only get to pick one, and I'll keep it something that I feel like they control and can be done much easier of the 2 options, but it's locking up Christian Benford, locking him up to an extension. He plays a premium position. The Bills are razor thin at cornerback right now. And you couple that with the fact that Christian Benford is one of the best, and I mean best, young corners in the NFL. Lock him up and be done with it. Be done with one side of the football field. You got covered for the next 4 or 5 years, even if ultimately it's going to cost you more than what you wanted it to cost you. Not every contract that Brandon Beane signs a player to, whether it's a new free agent or an extension, not every contract we're going to look at and say, oh, wow, that's really team friendly. Like the Khalil Shakir contract extension, that felt really team friendly. That ain't going to happen with Christian Benford. I can tell you that right now. But sometimes you got to do it anyway. Sometimes you got to do it anyway. Some guys are worth it, even if you're going to have to overpay when you factor in his talent, the position he plays, and the depth at this position, which stinks right now in the Buffalo Bills. And I feel like this would be a no-brainer. If I get a bonus one, and it's possible, I'd like to see the Bills make a trade too. You know, the Bills got 10 draft picks. I don't see them using 10 draft picks. I certainly don't see 10 rookies making this roster. I would love to see the Bills, and I don't know who. Maybe if I have more time to think on it, I'll try to come up with a couple specific names. But go trade for a defensive tackle. Go get a guy who could play that one tech. And I know they're going to draft one too, but still give up a 4th rounder. Go get a crafty veteran, somebody who I think could be an upgrade over Daquan Jones. Give up a 4th round pick to do that, or a 5th round pick, something like that. Or you could go corner. Right now, Dane Jackson is CB2 going into the draft. I don't think Dane Jackson is going to be CB2 week 1, but Dane Jackson is CB2 right now. You know, there's Asante Samuel Jr. is on the market. Obviously, the Bills don't want to pay him whatever he's asking for if he already been signed. Russell Douglas is still out there. Maybe in this market, there's just no corners the Bills feel like are worth the money in the open market. Make a trade. Go find a guy. Make a trade. I'd like to see that as well. But Christian Benford, to me, is definitely the big one. Tyler says, LOL, that's him, not me, at the Patriots signing Stefon Diggs and giving him all that money coming off a torn ACL. Fall from grace for Diggs over the past 2 years, and he's going to the Patriots, who are NFL bottom feeders. All right, look, here's my goal, because now this is actual news since we've talked last. Stefon Diggs did sign with the New England Patriots, okay? So we'll address that. After that, I really have some legitimate, serious Stefon Diggs fatigue. And I know why he keeps coming up. First of all, he's a polarizing player. He was a major part of Josh Allen's development. A very ugly falling out. The Bills traded him and $31 million in cap space to get rid of his ass. I get it. And then this offseason tears his ACL. On the 5-year anniversary of the Bills trading for him, he puts up his photos that he had taken down or what archived on Instagram, whatever the hell that shit means. And that led to a lot of speculation about maybe Stefon Diggs is coming here. Oh, no, he goes to the Patriots, okay? Look, whether some fans admit it or not, some animosity is going to stay with Diggs for the rest of his career, maybe beyond that. Again, the IG picks, I think, led some people to believe he may come back to Buffalo. A lot of people didn't like that idea, but some did. And I didn't hate it. But it was never going to happen. Look, again, I just said it. Brandon Beane paid over $30 million of a dead cap hit to trade and get rid of this dude, get him out of the building less than 2 years ago. Fences were not going to get mended to the point that Stefon Diggs would have been back on this team. Just not going to happen. Not to mention, is he even a football fit in this offense? We talked about earlier, Joe Brady, at least from what he's been as an offensive coordinator for the Bills, is not an alpha male, number 1 wide receiver type guy. And if he's a Buffalo Bill, I think that's what Stefon Diggs wants or would expect. So there's that. There's some Bills Mafia haterade going out there. Let's just be honest, going on with Stefon. No matter where he signed, it was always going to be that way, but especially because it's New England. And let's talk about the contract, because that's the number one thing. People are laughing at the contract. Here's my take on the contract he signed. Who gives a shit? Like, who cares what it is? It's going to be front loaded. As I'm recording this, the full details haven't emerged. But here's the thing about the Patriots, bro. They got cap room for days. So do you think they give a shit? Whatever the details end up being, they'll be able to get out of that contract easily, I guarantee you, in 2 years, if not 1 year. So who cares about the money? They're not cap strapped. The Patriots could go sign 3 or 4 more Stefon Diggs if they want to. So the cap or the contract means nothing to the Patriots. You got all this cap space. You need a short term, at least a short term answer for your franchise quarterback going into his second year right now. I mean, come on. Who gives a shit about the contract? Makes sense here. As far as the Patriots go, again, look, you could assume they're going to stink like they have the past few years, and they've been fucking terrible. I mean, let's just be honest with ourselves here. But I don't think they're going to stink. I think the New England Patriots have done a lot to get better, and we see every single year teams who suck come out of nowhere the next year. The 2004 Washington Commanders sucked, and they just played for the NFC Championship. The 2023 Houston Texans, they were great. And by the way, I meant the 2023 Commanders sucked. And then last year, they get a rookie quarterback. Bam, everything changes. The Houston Texans were a laughingstock, just like the Patriots were for a couple years. They get C.J. Stroud, lightning strikes. Bam, back to back, they've won divisional titles. Weak division, but who cares? They've won divisional titles, and they've won a playoff game each of the last 2 years. Okay? Who thought a year or so ago at this time the Minnesota Vikings would win 14 games last year? I remember when the Bills traded Diggs to Houston. I was excited because the Bills were getting Minnesota's second round pick. And in April, I'm like, well, shit, man, this might be a top 10 pick in the second round. Didn't end up that way. Minnesota got good real quick. Patriots got I'd say a solid head coach in Mike Vrabel. He's won before, man. He brings stability. He brings toughness. They've added a lot to that defense. Harold Landry, Milton Williams, many considered the prize of free agency. Carlton Davis, Robert Spillane. They've already had Christian Gonzalez, Jabril Peppers, Christian Barmore. They have pretty good defense right now, at least on paper, all right? And in terms of the offense, a lot of work still to do, but it starts with a really good, promising young quarterback, a franchise guy, and Drake May, and they have that now. And they're starting to get some pieces. Look, you can laugh at Matt Collins signing with them if you want, but let's not forget that Matt Collins played a pretty significant role in the Bills' offensive success last year. And this is a guy who caught 3 passes for 75 yards and a touchdown, far and away the best receiver in the AFC Championship game against Kansas City Chiefs. So he's going to help Drake May. He's not going to catch 75, 80 passes for 1,000 yards, but he's going to help, just like he helped the Bills this past year with Josh Allen. And then you add Diggs. And I still like last year's rookies. Jalen Polk, Javon Baker did absolutely nothing last year, but I'm not going to write them off after 1 year. They got the 4th overall pick of the draft. Maybe that ends up being Travis Hunter. In fact, there's a good chance it could be that. Or defensive tackle, you want to solidify that position? Bam, Mason Graham. There's other rookies. And they still got a shitload of cap room to do other things. And then last thing, and this is the last time I'm talking about Stefon Diggs. I'm telling you now. He ain't going to be the 100-catch Stefon Diggs we saw for 4 years. I still think he could be plenty good. He was good in Houston before the ACL. And I think he's going to get back to being a good to really good player. He works too hard, and he cares too much to not. All right? You can say what you want about him, but he is a hard worker. He busts his ass. He's already running full speed 5 months after the ACL. He's going to work his nuts off, man. And that's why I don't think he's another Odell Beckham Jr. Was a really talented receiver, got hurt, and that was pretty much a wrap for him. I don't think that's going to be the case with Stefon, man. Now, does this put New England in the Super Bowl contention? Hell no. Not by any means. This is a bigger needle mover, I think, than most people are giving credit to. Last Bills question here, then we'll get to a couple others here. Keaton Cheaton, I like that name, 99. What's your feelings on the Stevie Johnson versus Terrel Revis Twitter beef going on this week? Mine is it's the boring part of the offseason, so whatever. All right, well, this has been interesting over the last few days. If you have Twitter and you know what we're talking about here. I by the way, I disagree with you about this being the boring part of the offseason. I think that's crazy, man. It's draft season now, dude. Time to study up on those prospects if you're not already. Find the guys that you want on your team. Do mock drafts, all that fun shit. This is a good time of year for football. Offseason gets boring after the draft. All right. After the draft, you go to OTAs and someone looks amazing in freaking t-shirt and shorts, and you start raving about him in the mini camp and all that other shit. Football don't mean nothing from the end of the draft through training camp, minus a couple late post June 1st type signings. But besides that, shit's boring. Anyway, I'm gonna use a wrestling term here. Okay. I'm a Stevie Johnson mark, right? I love the dude, man. Love him. Hell of a guy. Genuinely loves the fans. And I know that firsthand. I've had him on this show live. We did a show at Imperial Pizza, just so accommodating to fans, having conversations. Some of these athletes will give you, a nice smile to shake your hand. You ask them, they'll take a selfie. This dude has conversations with almost every fan that comes into contact with him. He's an awesome dude, man. One of my favorites. And that's off the field. On the field, he was a very good and vastly underrated wide receiver with the Bills. He would have been a much bigger household name if the team that he played on was any good when he played. Okay. So again, I love me some Stevie Johnson. But again, I owe it to people here to be honest. When I do this show and I turn this microphone on and start recording, I don't always say the most popular thing, but I always say what I feel. And at least I'm speaking my truth anyway. I think it's a pretty bad, if not goofy look for both of them and how far this is going. I get the stance of both sides. And again, for people who are listening, like, what in the fuck are you even talking about? Terrel Revis, Stevie Johnson, Twitter beef got pretty ugly. From Terrel Revis's side, in his mind, it's like, whatever. Talking about Stevie, it's whatever. You weren't as good against me as you think you were. And I've covered way better receivers and shut down way better wide receivers than you throughout my career. You ain't shit. And I got a gold jacket. That's the stance basically of Terrel Revis. It's for Stevie, who actually, by the way, was very good against Revis and Revis Island. He was really good against him. Understandably so, Stevie took that shit really personal, just getting dismissed by Revis. Maybe too personal, because he's probably ripped off no less than 40 tweets exclusively dedicated to Revis over this past week, including a few that basically said, come say that shit to my face without actually being a physical threat to Revis Island. Personally, again, being honest with you, I think Stevie took it a bit too far, but who am I to judge? I take everything personal. I take everything personal. Like Stefon Diggs once said, man, I'm never the bigger person. I'm never the bigger person. Stevie Johnson feels blown off. He feels utterly disrespected and dismissed by Revis. And this never started out with like Stevie talking shit and being disrespectful about Revis. It really wasn't. Revis kind of made it that way. That's the one thing I will say against him. If you looked at it from again, circling back to a wrestling thing here, Revis is kind of like the arrogant heel, the wrestling champion who's blowing off the hardworking, fan favorite grinder babyface who wants to work his way, into the main event scene. End of the day, nobody's mind is going to be changed. I mean, if you're a Bills fan, you saw Stevie play against Revis, the Jets, all those years, you saw the games, you know how good Stevie Johnson played. And you know that he was an incredibly underrated wide receiver on some pretty shitty Buffalo Bills teams. And if you're not a Bills fan and you hear the comparisons, well, I just said it, Johnson against Revis, and you don't really follow the Bills or whatever, you hear that and you're like, you think of one guy, he's a Hall of Famer. Reva's one line, he's got a gold jacket, and the other's just another guy, a pretty good wide receiver. That would be the mindset of non-Bills fans. It is what it is. But yeah, it's taking on a life of its own. I feel like it's went a little too far. And I feel like at some point, and again, this comes from experience where it's easy to say, just move on, get past it, get off that. That would be what I would say to Stevie, but I'm not sure that he's going to do that shit anytime soon because he feels disrespected, and I could certainly understand why he would feel that way. Reagan says, really love the episode with Chad DeDominicis. He's one of, if not the best Sabres guy out there. Keeps things even keel and not emotional in his analysis. And you could hear it when he talked about the Kevin Adams palm tree presser, the Bagula Montreal speech, Zach Benson, and other things. Yeah, for sure, man. Chad is great. I had him on the show. He was on Tuesday's episode. 100% right, man. 100% right there, Reagan. He discussed Nuggets. All right, so this show, the theme of the show was the 10 most embarrassing moments for the Buffalo Sabres this season so far. And pretty much what I did is take a nonstop shit on the Buffalo Sabres, which of course I feel and still feel is very, very much deserved. Dead last in the Eastern Conference, GM's in his 5th year. Just these embarrassing moments and embarrassing games that they had this year. And I'm just shitting all over them. Chad would chime in on them. And in fairness to him, you know, he talked about nuggets that really aren't talked about enough, that weren't or not reported at all. Like with the Kevin Adams presser and the Bagula speech, it just didn't get reported because it didn't fit that I hate the Sabres narrative, a narrative that I very much have. Again, it's funny coming from me because I hate these fucking guys as much as anybody right now. I think the best podcasters, broadcasters, analysts, writers, whatever you want to label people as right now, the best ones have the ability to change the mind of a person who comes into a discussion open-minded. Like if they're willing, if they have a stance, but they're open-minded and they're willing to listen to someone else and potentially change how they think about something, I think without even knowing he does it, Chad has that ability as good as about anyone else that I know. Now, look, I certainly still cannot stand Kevin Adams or Terry Bagula in regards to the Buffalo Sabres, but he put into great context a lot of stuff there. My mind kind of got changed a little bit, at least a little, on some of those things. Also, the 6-2 loss we talked about at home to San Jose. I'm like, this was one of the more disgraceful nights I can remember being a Sabres fan. Chad put some perspective on that game that I really didn't take into consideration. So anyway, yeah, for sure, man. Go check it out too. Sabres fan, obviously, you'll want to listen. Maybe you'll get something out of it if you're not really a Sabres fan as well. At Joseph Tedesco, 6737. Hey, Pat, not expecting his comment to end up in the mailbag. You met Podbag, buddy. But I haven't watched a Sabres game in 2 years. Damn. I hope Terry sells his team or guts everything and hires a legitimate president of hockey ops, spends the cap, and takes a hands-off approach. Has anyone watched or listened to Terry speak? I'm grateful for his ownership of our teams, but this guy doesn't exactly inspire confidence or motivation. The ownership is an epic failure. Bills and Bandits work because he's hands off. Sure, he shows up and probably says something he thinks is constructive in his view, but could you imagine if he was meddling in those operations from a significant position of influence? This organization is a shit show. Thanks, Joe. You know what? Let me just say this, man. I'll never judge how a fan feels about the Buffalo Sabres after 14 years of this bullshit, not making the playoffs and not even coming close in most of them, including this year. Nothing has worked. If you stop watching the team, if you think Terry Bagula is the worst owner ever, if you think he's a meddler, if you think he's too hands-on, if you think he's too hands-off, if you think he's cheap, and evidence with the Sabres certainly suggests that he is, if you think he should sell the team for that matter, you have every right to feel that way. Every right. And I'm never going to criticize that. All right, last two here. Josh Picaro says, thank you for the amazing recommendation. We're past the sports part here, folks. Thank you for the amazing recommendation of The Pit. I started the show based on it, and I absolutely love it. All right, The Pit, HBO Max. This is my favorite weekly drama series I've seen in quite a while. Quite a while. I'd have to go back to probably last time I had a show that was a weekly show that I looked more forward to watching the next one is what was that show on NBC? This Is Us. I really sad ass show, ridiculous how sad it got. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. And I looked forward to the next week all the time. Now this show is way different. Same kind of feeling though, where wow, I can't wait for the next one. I describe The Pit as if ER, House, and 24 all had a threesome. The entire season happens like over a 15-hour shift, the whole season. And what I've loved most is each week there's a few interesting cases. There's some incredible like story arcs along the way. Great, and I mean great character development. So good that it's made me care about so many of the characters beyond just the main one, Dr. Robbie. Um, there's 6, 7 characters that they've just done a tremendous job of storytelling, and it makes me want to know more about them. And I think it's really helped the show. It's fast moving. You learn a lot, whether you want to know medical shit or not. You're going to uh episode. So this is dropping on Thursday. So episode 13 of 15 drops tonight. Or is it 14? It's only a couple left. I know that much. So it may be too late to catch up before the season ends. I'm telling you, dudes, telling you, if you like a good old fashioned TV network style drama, but on cable, so it gets even more intense, especially medical stuff, this is absolutely the right show for you. Season 2, by the way, already confirmed. So if you're wondering, am I going to catch up on a show, binge a show? It's going to be one and done. No, it's already confirmed. So it's definitely worth your time to catch up if you haven't already. All right, last one here. JBus81 / Go Bills. I need another Pat Moran podcast episode of things he hates with reasons why and elaboration. These episodes are must listens. Some ideas: movies, athletes, football and hockey only, actors and actresses, food, and restaurants. Sold. I like that idea too, man. This was in reference, by the way, to me tweeting on Wednesday, Quantum Leap with Scott Bakula. I don't know if some of you older people will remember that. It debuted on this date in 1989, and I just added that I thought that show absolutely sucked. I love hating on shit. You're not wrong. Not as much as Joe from Queens, though, but I'm up there. I feel like I do this every time I talk about the Sabres, but beyond that, I don't know. Am I that much of a hater? Anyway, maybe this could be a regular segment on the Monday podcast I do with Joe from Queens. We'll see. But anyway, all right, that's going to do it for this episode. Went a little bit longer, man. But I told you these were some really good ones. And I really love those conversations about like Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, because I think they're just going to play such a big role. We spend so much time, wondering what draft picks are they going to make. And that's obviously very, very important. What are the moves they may make or stuff like that, who they've added, who they've lost. But I feel like at the end of the day, just like last year, it was young talent continuing to ascend and having an MVP quarterback that was going to make last year successful. This year, I look at the offense and they didn't really add much, Josh Palmer. But to me, for the offense to be sustainable, which I absolutely think they can be, it's all about Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid. And maybe Josh Palmer too, now that he's a Buffalo Bill, who's kind of been in a more of a background role with the Chargers. Those guys taking that next step, becoming what they're capable of being. That's what's going to make this offense sustainably great. But that was really good stuff. And I had a lot of fun going through those drafts and finding out what other GMs did right after Brandon Beane made his selection. So, again, you could take that low-hanging fruit with a couple of those guys, those couple of those misses, but you take some of those Bills picks that he nailed and what players went after them in that same position immediately after, and holy shit, it makes Brandon Beane's draft record look a hell of a lot better. Anyway, all right, it's going to do it for today's show. One more coming up this week. I'm going to have my guy, Chris Ostrander from Two in a Box. We'll talk Bills, Sabres, and plenty more coming up tomorrow.